What is up, real estate rock stars? I am so excited about this podcast. Athena Brownson is just absolutely inspiring, encouraging. She sells around $100 million worth of real estate a year while battling a serious disease and gets herself up. She does the reps every day, even after doing it for 11 years. You are going to love this podcast. All right, without further ado, I am joined with Athena Brownson out of Denver, Colorado. And I am really, really excited to hear from her, especially in this market. She runs a small team with just 3 agents, and they're selling around $100 million worth of real estate a year. That's insane. How are you doing, Athena?
Couldn't be happier to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day in Denver, although it's a little bit hot. And, just got finished showing a bunch of properties, so I can't complain.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get into real estate? How long have you been in it?
Absolutely. So I like to say my past life. I was a professional skier. So I was born and raised in Colorado. I grew up in a little mountain community called Breckenridge, where my father was also a professional skier, but a developer. So I grew up walking job sites from the time I probably could walk. And I grew up skiing from the time that I could walk as well. And that's, skiing really took my heart. And when I look back, I really think that's the best business school I ever could have asked for, because as a young adult, it taught me the principles of showing up and accountability and discipline and overcoming adversity. I can't tell you how many knees I blew during that, my 12 years as a professional athlete, and really just understanding how to get through challenging times in life. And I think that's something that we can all relate to right now, whether it's a slower real estate market, more challenging, or if you have something else going on in your life, relationships. I personally struggle with health issues. So really the last 10 years, I guess 11 years, I just hit the 11-year mark of being in real estate, which blows my mind. No idea where time went. It's really been seeking, as much mentorship and coaching as I possibly can, which is something that I really, really took from the arena of skiing. Was you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't have someone looking over, what you're doing, you don't know what your blind spots are. And they've really helped me to put together what my niche is, what my basics are, what are the things that I need to be doing on a daily basis so that I don't get those huge ebbs and flows in my business, like we all, are always combating. So it's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah. So let's go back to the professional skier. So what did your life look like? Were you traveling all over doing different competitions? Tell me about that.
Yes, it truly was another lifetime. So I went professional when I was 15 years old. And that
Wow.
basically just means that that's when I started to make money from skiing, and I had sponsors that would fly me all over the world. So I skied about 300 days a year when I wasn't hurt, because I did compete in slope style and half pipe. So I was one of those crazy people that you see flying off big jumps and spinning and doing backflips and going through the half pipe. I did a lot of contests like X Games and Do Tour, and
Wow.
for a young adult, it was a dream come true, and it truly was. Um, I finally decided to hang up my ski boots when my doctor looked at me. I was just about 23 years old, 24 years old, and he said, Athena, you're going to need a knee replacement or two before the time you're 30. I think you should consider other avenues. And that did the trick. And I decided to go to a less impact sport of real estate, but it's not
Yeah.
really that much less impact.
Yeah.
But it's easier on the knees, I would say.
Well, that's a huge shift from being a competitive skier to now, running around, opening doors, writing contracts. Definitely not the most glamorous of jobs, we all know. Was that a tough
Definitely.
shift?
You know, so in between skiing and real estate, when I finished going to college, I worked at an interior design firm. And I knew that I loved homes, I loved design, I loved working with people. But what I found was that because of my background as an athlete, I needed to find something where the amount of input that I put in would show me how much I got out of it. And I felt very much so like there was a ceiling on how high I could take my career and push myself and really, I needed to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know that at the time because I was 25 years old and still figuring out life. But what I found is that, I've run into a lot of former athletes in this competitive world of real estate that we're in, because I do feel that athletics and entrepreneurship go hand in hand, because it's all about finding that passion within. And when you have the passion, it means that you're going to be able to persevere through challenging times. It means you're going to be able to persevere when you're falling on your face over and over again. And you are doing the very non-glamorous duties that we all, we wear so many hats. But honestly, I don't think that I would ever want it any other way, because it truly is the most fulfilling job I could ask for. And it never gets boring. No day is ever the same.
Sure. I was a Division 1 tennis player and
Oh,
competitive.
wow. There
So
you
I
go.
definitely see where you get that consistency, you get that drive from doing sports growing up, and that's your job
Absolutely.
from a young age.
Yeah,
And I resonate with having a job where all the input you put in, you want some output, because we've had jobs
exactly.
where you're running around like crazy. So you get into real estate. So what are some of your secrets to success? I mean, 100 million a year is insane. And you started in 2014, not the best market. So to kind of talk about that
Yeah.
journey.
Absolutely. I should say that even though I grew up in the world of real estate, I had an idea in my head that realtors were a dime a dozen. And I did not have a very sunny outlook on the world of real estate. And because I grew up in a very touristic mountain town where there were more real estate offices than t-shirt shops. So
Mhm.
I never had a great connotation with real estate. And I had a dear girlfriend who she sells on her own 100 million a year easily up in Bozeman, Montana, Charlotte, Durham. She used to live here in Denver, and she looked at me one night and said, Athena, you're not happy at your job. You love homes, you love design, you love people, you understand development. Why are you not in real estate? And I gave her kind of my wishy-wash excuse of, oh, I don't like realtors. It's just a used car salesman. Like,
Mhm.
and meanwhile, she's in real estate. So,
Yeah.
and she said, Athena, just sit down with the owner of my company. I think you guys would really hit it off. He can explain to you a little bit more about, what the business looks like. And I did. I had lunch with him a couple of days later, and I was so taken aback by his approach to business and to real estate, and to the even just the idea that real estate was actually a vessel for being able to serve others and to be able to guide people through one of the most, you know, top three stressful events in their life. I mean, it's the biggest transaction, whether you're buying or selling or investing, that you make in life. So really, he taught me the principles of relationship based business. After that lunch, I quite literally quit my job the next day, put in my 2 weeks notice, ended up being like 2 days more of work,
Mhm.
but had my last knee surgery, I think it was number 9, and got my real estate license while I was recovering. Well, I had the extreme fortune, which is something that I recommend to any young agent or any agent in general, of mentoring under the owner of the company. So for about almost a year, I followed every move he made. I went to his showings with him. I did open houses with him. Listened to him on phone calls. I had him listen in on my phone calls. I did market analysis with him because I think when you go to real estate school, unfortunately, we all know that you don't really learn the tools that you need in order to be successful. And you don't necessarily understand the principles of how much you can help people and be such a huge, source of wisdom in this experience for them. And being able to have that mentorship right off the bat, I believe, is what put me on a really positive trajectory, because I saw someone that I admired and whose beliefs and systems aligned with my own. And then once it was time to kind of spread my wings and go off on my own, I realized that I was always going to be someone that needed coaching. And again, that goes back to being an athlete. We don't know what we don't know. And I think it's critical to have someone that is in our corner that can say, hey, here's where you're really thriving, and I can see you're doing really well at A, B, and C, but maybe these are items that can be delegated, or maybe you should not put so much time and energy into X if that's not something that feels authentic to you. Because I think when we're learning real estate, we have so much guidance of, okay, are you doing your cold calls? Are you doing, 5 open houses a week? Whatever it is, if it doesn't resonate to you authentically, that's going to come through in every interaction that you have. So coaching has really helped me to kind of mold my business into a career that is fulfilling to me personally, because it aligns with who I am as a human. And when you're doing, when you're acting out of alignment, or acting in alignment, I should say, you truly, that's where you thrive. And understanding where you succeed and where you maybe should be delegating things, or, not focusing so much energy, or, hey, you need to buck up and learn something about, your weaknesses, is such valuable insight that I don't know that you can truly get without mentorship or coaching or some sort of accountability buddy. So that really was the start and foundation of creating a successful business, because I was very green.
So who do you do coaching with?
So I used a program called The Core for
I've
about
heard of that.
6 years. Yeah, they were absolutely wonderful. A couple of my favorite coaches from The Core ended up opening their own coaching program. So I do coaching with them. I also have a local business coach, not real estate specific, but just business overall. And then I actually have 3 coaches at the moment. It's a little bit absurd, but they're all very valuable in different ways. And a third coach that's just really helping my team to build out our systems to be, rebuild our systems to be as well executed as possible. So yeah, I'm working with 3 coaches at the moment.
That sounds like a lot of money. Is it worth it?
you know, So that's the thing about coaching, is it is a investment. Now, the coaches that I have found right now, one is a bit more expensive for sure. You're looking at like $1,000 a month, which during a bad market, that's a lot of money. But
Sure.
the other 2 coaches, one is $175 a month, my business coach, and it's the most valuable information I could ever
Mhm.
imagine. The other is about 300. So it's all much less than I was paying when I was at Core. But when I was at Core, looking at the way that my business continued to grow, almost double each year, it showed me that having that accountability and having the structure and having, the discipline of working with a coach was paying for itself and then some. And obviously, if you're looking at your numbers and it's not doing that, then there's a problem and maybe you haven't found the right fit. But if you're going to be investing that much money into yourself, you have to make sure that you're also showing up for it. And I think that's, in the world of real estate, we all get so busy. There's 100 shiny objects and
Mhm.
squirrels that we're constantly chasing. And it's really easy to just put things off and keep moving them. And if, coaching's one of those things where if you don't take it seriously and actually take the time to learn and grow and do things the right way, instead of just getting your homework done the last minute and like trying to cram and figure it out, then you're not actually giving yourself the gift of that coaching.
Yeah.
So it's been a very valuable resource.
Well, I liked what you said as when you first started, you went to your boss, you went to the leader of your brokerage saying, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" And I think there's so many people in so many markets that would be so flattered to have someone ask them that. So, and I'm sure that
The
was
same
free.
with
You said,
you.
can I follow you around?" And it's like, sure. So there's opportunities if you are seeking somebody to help you learn and grow that isn't going to cost you $1,000 a month. They just need to shift their
Exactly.
mindset to seek that.
Yeah, and I absolutely in a million years wouldn't have been able to afford coaching when as I started real estate, and it took many years before I got to that point. But, in hindsight, I have been able to kind of mentor a few agents onto my team. And what I find in mentorship that, I think most mentors will say is that they end up gaining almost as much from mentoring someone as the mentee does, because
Yeah.
when you're going through your basics, going through your systems, showing someone how to execute something, it walks you through what you're doing and processing in such a tangible way that you can reassess where your weak spots are and how you can get better. So it really is a mutually beneficial relationship, and it's something that is free. And I think, agents of all experience levels, I still have different mentors after 11 years that I know that I can call for sound advice or to be a sounding board or to work a huge client together, whatever the case may be. I think creating some, in what can be a lonely business, it doesn't have to be. We all have the ability to support each other and help each other grow, because at the end of the day, there is enough pie out there for everyone.
Totally. So, with all this coaching and everything you've learned in your 11 years, what do you think has been your greatest success as far as prospecting, as far as getting deals? Tell me about that.
So, I like to say keep it simple, stupid to myself because what I find, and this is something, a structure that I learned while I was at the core. So it's one of their systems. But what I found was that if I was following a weekly tracker, like a habit tracker, so to speak, they call theirs the greatness tracker. And it goes over the basics of what are the fundamental pillars of your business that you need to be executing every day in order to be successful. And that means, how many people are you meeting face to face a day? How many people are you breaking bread with, or, grabbing coffee, grabbing food? How many phone calls a day are you making? How many open houses a week are you doing? How many handwritten notes a day are you writing? And it's a spreadsheet that I print out at the beginning of every week. And I actually have implemented putting some of my personal goals in it too. So, am I working out enough days a week? Am I sticking to a clean anti inflammatory diet to support my immune system? Because I have autoimmune diseases and Lyme. So, you can really cater this according to where you thrive and where you find the most success, but they're just the basics that we tend to push off of our plate when life gets busy. And what I've personally found is when I'm following my greatness tracker, when I'm checking off every day, I'm making my past client calls. I'm making my current client calls. I'm making my prospecting calls. I'm writing handwritten notes. I'm doing a monthly mailer. If I'm doing these basics and I'm executing them consistently and really well, then my business does not have the huge ebbs and flows in it. It's when I get too busy and I get lackadaisical on my greatness trackers that I find that, 60 days down the road, my business is going to be not where I want it to be. So, it really is keep it simple, stupid, because it is implementing the basics well to create a strong foundation for yourself. Because from that, you can only, continue to grow upwards. But if you don't have a strong foundation, you have nothing. We all know that. We sell houses.
Mhm. Yeah. So what does your greatness tracker look like for you on a good week? Like how many people are you calling? Break that down a little bit.
Hey, Real Estate Rockstars. This is Aaron Amucci-Stegi. Quick commercial break. If you've heard about our mastermind in Austin, you know it's where some of the best connections and breakthroughs happen for agents and team leaders across the country. Hey, our next one, even though it's far out, it's February 25th through 27th, downtown Austin. But ticket sales are actually closing July 28th. If the event isn't for that long, why are we closing out tickets that long? We want to be able to focus on the event and on the mastermind and not ticket sales. So if you've seen all of our reviews from people in the past, it is a no-brainer to join, but this is your last chance to join. So this is one of those things that you heard us on the podcast, said next year. Last chance. Go to realestaterockstarsmastermind.com. Grab your ticket before July 28th. Hope I see you there.
Yeah. So my greatness, when I was in the Corps, we would actually get fined for every box that we did not fill out. So if we missed a phone call, it would go to charity. So it was a good thing, but it kept you accountable and it kept you on your toes. So there was, you have some skin in the game because you're already paying a lot. So to donate more, at least it's going somewhere good. But I like to. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to do it. So looking at my week, my ideal week, I would have five to eight face-to-face meetings. And that can be with more than one person at a time, but it's just getting that face-to-face time. I would have 4, maybe 5 breaking breads. So again, asking past clients out to coffee or dinner, stopping by their house for an annual check-in and bringing over coffee or a pie or something like that. Anything that's actually going to sit you down and get you engaged for longer than 15 minutes. My goal is always 12 phone calls a day. What do I hit that goal? Usually, it usually ends up being 10 very intentional phone calls. And then the rest of just picking up the phone like crazy people, as we always are. 2 open houses a week. I like to write 4 handwritten notes a day. Honestly, as silly as that may sound to some, that is probably one of the most impactful things that I have implemented in my business consistently and gotten incredible feedback. I think the art of taking the time to write someone a personal message by hand. Yes, it may take 15, 20 minutes out of your day to write a quick note or 4 quick notes to people. But the amount of business that has brought me and just sending happy birthday cards, happy anniversary, anything that you see on Facebook that's a major life event, I like to put it in my CRM and then write a note to that person about it. So honestly, that's my number one thing. I love writing notes. And then am I doing,
what do they say?
1 month?
What do your notes say?
I'm very corny, I would say. Like I love my clients so much. So generally it's, an outpouring of gratitude, whether they just completed a purchase, whether they wrote a nice review for me, whether it's just checking in on their property, seeing how things are going, whether it's a happy birthday or a happy anniversary, happy home anniversary. But it's usually just an outpouring of gratitude. It's also a really good opportunity that if you haven't gotten a review, a testimonial from a client, and you haven't been able to connect with them on the phone for whatever reason, I love to put in a printout with a QR code that just, write a handwritten note, say, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to help you. I would absolutely love if you could take the time to share your experience working together. And if you know anyone else that's looking for a real estate broker, I would love to, earn their business as well. And I have a QR code that goes to my Google reviews and a QR code for a lead intake form.
Cool.
And then I follow that up with a phone call. Hey, I just wanted to make sure you got my mail. How's everything going? Thank you so much for the testimonial, or I'd really appreciate it if you would do it. Write a testimonial. That's how my business thrives. So, that's pretty much the basics of my greatness tracker. Again, a couple open houses a week. Every day, my phone calls, the 10 to 12 are a theme day. So, you can make these for yourselves, but I do past clients, active clients, prospects, whales. So like any big clients that I'm trying to create relationship with, trying to set that face-to-face meeting. And then I've got my lead follow-up. So that's pretty much my workflow. And if I time block enough time into my day in the morning to get these things done, I know that I've already accomplished so much green time, and that the rest of the day, like, I'm going to be able to be on my toes for my clients. And, we unfortunately do put out fires nonstop as agents. So it's making sure that you do build that flexibility in. But if you already have such a good foundation built from doing these basics, then you're going to have, success over time.
Absolutely. So you've been an agent for 11 years, and there's a lot of agents that are newer than you that, again, they go away from the basics because they're like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't need a tracker. People are just going to call me. Talk about how important consistency is. And even you with 11 years of experience, 100 million in sales, you're still going back to this greatness tracker.
Oh, 100%. And I don't think that I ever will stray away from it, honestly, because I don't know, of course, there are some agents that get to an echelon in their career where the phone does just keep ringing nonstop. But what I have personally found is that because we are in an industry that's inundated with a huge number of agents, if you are not actively pursuing your sphere to be top of mind, there is going to be someone else who will be doing that. And another thing that comes to mind, my business coach always says to me, Athena, you never know the day that you're going to have the interaction or meet the person that changes the rest of your life. So if I'm going into if I'm waking up and like I said, I struggle with health issues. So a lot of times it's very difficult to motivate, and it's very difficult to keep myself on track. So having something that creates this consistency that I can rely on and say, hey, I can accomplish these tasks. I don't need to get, obviously there's so many shiny objects in real estate, and there's a lot of really exciting innovation happening, especially in the world of AI. And I think, of course, there is room and a necessity to master some of these skills. But at the same time, when you're focused on relationship-based business, if you are not doing the foundation, the principles that are creating those relationships, then you're not really doing a relationship-based business, and it will dry up. So you might get the calls for like a one-off property sale or purchase, but you're most likely not going to be getting those referrals or those repeat clients because you're not truly investing in your clients. And going back to, you never know the day that you're going to meet someone that changes your life. I think that's a really amazing way to start every day, especially right now, when for new agents, for all agents, when the market is definitely more challenging. We have at least in Denver, a huge increase in inventory, a decrease in buyer activity still, and the market just feels very stagnant. It can be really easy to get disheartened and unmotivated and to let that energy of the market kind of take you down with it. And I think that's something we have to battle through action and consistent action. So when we wake up every day, if we say, okay, things are hard right now, but I don't know if today's going to be the day that I get a phone call about someone that wants to buy, a $5 million house, or I get a phone call from someone who wants to see my biggest listing that's not selling. You never know what the day has in store. And I think if we approach it from that mindset, it makes everything a lot more doable when it doesn't feel like things are happening very quickly or moving in the way we would like them to.
Yeah. Well, and you've touched on this throughout our chat. You have Lyme disease. What does that, for people that don't really know what that is, what does that feel like? How does that impact your life?
Yeah. So going from being literally in peak physical condition as a professional athlete, I was about 2.5 years into real estate. So I was diagnosed about 9 years ago. And I had just had my last neck surgery. And basically, what chronic Lyme disease is you get bit by a tick at some point. I've never even seen a tick. I have no memory of being bit by a tick. So I have no idea when I contracted it. But it lays dormant in your system until something causes your immune system to be weakened, at which time it can take over. So unfortunately, it's the fastest growing epidemic in the country right now. And it looks very different in different people because it attacks whatever your genetic weaknesses are. So for some people, the commonalities are, extreme fatigue, extreme brain fog, horrific pain in the joints, a lot of gastrointestinal issues. But for some, it could be very neuropsychiatric. It generally causes swelling of the brain, which causes psychiatric issues. There's a lot of rheumatoid arthritis that goes along with it. It is, for me, it showed up in the form of autoimmune diseases. So I was diagnosed in April of 2017. And I kid you not, in a period of 5 months, I went from being probably one of the most, in shape athletes imaginable to being in so much physical pain every day, 24 hours a day, that I could barely have clothing touching my skin because it felt like my skin was on fire. Unfortunately, it triggered a autoimmune disease that attacks my nerves. So I constantly have my own body attacking my nerves. And because Lyme disease is so different in different people, there's no one size fits all way to get better. So it's, then that's why I'm here 9 years later, continuing to fight. I get 4 plasma transfusions a month. Through a port in my arm. I used to have tubes hanging out of my chest. At one point, I had such a rare sensitivity to electromagnetic frequencies. So, like your computer, your phone, LED light bulbs. I had such a sensitivity that I had to move into an RV that wasn't connected to power, didn't have Wi-Fi, and when I needed to write a real estate contract, thank God my assistant was able to help with a lot during this period. But if I didn't wear lead gloves and a lead blanket to protect me before I got on the phone or computer, I would get electrical burns that would start gushing blood.
Wow.
So it's honestly one of at some point, I feel like I should write a science fiction novel about what Lyme disease has been like.
Me and my Lyme disease, yeah.
Exactly, because it's just so out of this world, but it's 24/7. It doesn't give you breaks until, you're able to get it in remission. And generally, that's a very long road. So people stay away from ticks. If you get bit by a tick, go to the doctor, take doxycycline, and you will not get chronic Lyme disease like me.
So you're waking up, doing this greatness tracker, calling your past clients, writing handwritten notes, all while dealing with a lot of pain and brain fog. And I know, like, if you're not all with it, making cold calls or even calling clients, you're like, so how are you getting the determination to like power through this?
Yeah, and it ebbs and flows for sure. There was a period where I just was in so much pain that I ended up just checking myself into the hospital, and I pretty much I was still right. I laugh because I think about I was still writing real estate contracts from the hospital. But two things. Number one, I've learned first and foremost that I do have to listen to my body. So there's a certain extent to which having this purpose, having this passion, having something that keeps my eyes looking forward. And I think this is, really important for anyone facing any adversity. When you're going through something difficult, you need to have something that you're passionate about to keep your eyes looking forward, because it's so easy to just get stuck and to be unmotivated and to just want to throw in the towel. And the number of doctors that I had tell me, Athena, you need to go on disability and just lay on the couch. And for me, I knew that if I did that, my brain would disengage so much. I would get so depressed. It would hurt my physical health more than anything. I knew that just wasn't right for me. So to be able to have a career that I loved, and I could be open with my clients about my battles so that they're some of my biggest supporters. And it creates that very authentic relationship that I so believe in, by saying, I'm human. This is what I'm going through. But I've also learned that I had to create almost my toolkit for how to get through life when my body didn't want to. And there were years where Lyme is a nocturnal bug, so it very much keeps you awake at night. And there were years where if I didn't have someone come physically wake me up out of bed in the morning, that I would sleep through 50 alarms and end up missing appointments. I mean, it was a complete nightmare. So I started to learn what tools that I could use to help get me through the times that didn't feel like I could. So even to this day, when my alarm goes off, and I do hear it now, which is a huge win. But there's nothing inside of me that wants to get out of bed. But I know that if I blast some of my favorite music or put on one of my favorite podcasts, that it's going to start getting me excited and getting me at least having some sort of forward momentum. And that's what I've found is what are the little sparks of joy? What are the things that I truly enjoy in life that are going to help propel me to get through the days that don't feel doable? And, a lot of that is making sure that I'm going to the gym and getting in at least a little bit of movement to keep my blood flowing, because I'm going through so much treatment. Making sure that, I'm not isolating too much outside of work. But honestly, it's been, every quarter my team does what we call a quarterly offsite. And basically for 2 days, we get out of Dodge, whether that's just renting a hotel room here in Denver or maybe going up to the mountains for a night. And we disconnect. We look over what our last quarter, consisted of, both personally and professionally. And we look over what our goals were for that quarter. And we see, where we thrived and where we fell short, again, both personally and professionally. And I think making sure that you're integrating your personal life, and by that I mean your family, friends, spirituality, how you take care of yourself. These are all pillars of creating a successful human. And if you're ignoring any of them, then it will show up in how you're conducting yourself in your day to day. So we really analyze what we did well and what we didn't do well. And I can kind of look from a standpoint of my health and see where, where I think I dropped the ball, or where I wasn't maybe putting enough effort in or time into even just something like rest, making sure that I'm resting enough, because again, I do have that athlete mentality that kind of pushes through anything that I'm sure you can relate to. But really understanding where we were, so that we can understand where we want to go and where our weak spots are. So that's been something that honestly has been huge in helping me reflect on what I'm doing well with my health, with my business, with my life, and where I need to maybe put a little bit more focus and energy for the quarter ahead.
I love it. Well, this has been so fun. We've been talking for like 40 minutes. We've covered all sorts of good stuff. I know. It's been awesome. Well, Athena, what is the best way people can find you?
Yes. And anyone, please feel free to reach out, whether you're going through something hard or you're interested in Denver real estate. I would say my website, it's got my, all my social media platforms. I put great videos out every day, as well as my phone number and email. So that's just www.athena, Athena Brownson, Brownson, realtor.com. So
okay,
please
reach
out.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I think this has been so encouraging and inspiring for everyone. And they have your info. Reach out to her if you want to know anything about Denver or just want to talk to her about life. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you for having me.